What is the worst thing you've ever gone through because of a man? Is it traumatic? Is it painful? Is it nauseating just to think about? Well, let me ask you something that might sound strange. If you could take back the pain of the experience, but still have the lesson, would you do it? Well, if you would, then today is your lucky day, because on today's show, we're going to be discussing 10 harsh truths about men that women learn too late. That way you can learn from the mistake without ever having to experience the pain of going through it. For point number one, we're going to discuss the following. I'm talking about the people he's following on his Instagram account, on his, if you want to say Snapchat, Facebook, the people he follows on social media. Now, why is this important? And why is this a harsh truth about men? How can who he's following be a harsh truth? I want you to understand what he is following on his social media is a representation of what he's constantly feeding his mind with. I wouldn't even say a representation. It is what he's feeding his mind with. So I drew out a visual here of a man brain and what it kind of looks like in a visual sense of how information is getting fed to the man brain and what he's consuming. So let's say you're scrolling through Instagram and a man is following a whole bunch of Instagram models who are posting half naked bikini pictures, posting themselves in provocative poses, always saying provocative things, very inappropriate stuff, right? He's going to be feeding his mind with those Instagram models. He's also going to be feeding his mind with a whole lot of sex topics and subjects and ideas and suggestive themes. And he's also overall, the overarching theme, he's going to be filling his brain with a lot of lust or lust specific concepts and ideas, right? So why is that such a bad thing for you? And how does that become a harsh truth? If your man is consistently, or a man you're seeing or dating, right, is consistently feeding himself with all of these lustful ideas and thoughts on a regular basis, because the people that he's following are the people that he's going to constantly see on his page over and over and over again. As he's feeding his mind and his brain and his soul and his spirit with all of those ideas and all of those topics, that is going to make it more likely for him to fall victim to temptation, right? Temptation in the sense of doing something inappropriate in the relationship, constantly thinking, oh, wow, there are more beautiful women, so maybe my woman isn't good enough, right? Or even just having the temptation of DMing women in inappropriate things, right? Having sex on the brain is also a gateway to do more, whether it be watch adult videos, consume them, get on OF, and these things can become like a gateway drug. So for point number two, we're going to discuss hurt men, okay? Now, this is something that can become very dangerous to you and a truth that you must learn about men. If you make the mistake of allowing a man to have his feelings hurt by you, because men have feelings, so they get hurt sometimes, but you say to yourself, well, if he doesn't want to talk about it, just forget it. You know, we don't have to talk about it. I'll just let it go. We'll just move on from it because I'm not going to force him to talk about it. Mistake. Let me explain to you a harsh truth that some women have to learn the hard way by going through this visual example. Let's say, for the sake of example, he sees you having a conversation. I want to give you guys eyeballs here so you have a soul. So let's say, for the sake of example, he sees you having a conversation with another guy at, let's just say, a random party, right? And you guys are at this party, you're having a conversation. You might think you're just having a friendly conversation, but maybe he sees it as a flirty conversation. And it gets him all discombobulated and he's a little bit upset at the fact that you're having a flirty conversation with this guy. And let's say afterwards, you start to notice that his energy is a little bit off. He's a little bit short with you. He doesn't have the same approach that he does. He's not talking to you the same way, right? And you can feel something's wrong. So you try to like talk about it or ask him about it. And he's just like, oh, it's nothing. Who cares? Whatever. It's whatever, right? This is where the mistake comes in. For a lot of women, they say, you know what, if my man said it's whatever and he says he's not bothered by it, I'm just going to assume he's not bothered by it, even though I feel like he's bothered by it. The reason this becomes a mistake, what some guys will do is, despite the fact they are hurt, right? They're truthfully hurt. They will hold that in. Then they'll hold a grudge against you because since they were hurt by you and they didn't feel resolved from their hurt, because you guys didn't get to have a proper conversation about it. You didn't even get an opportunity to apologize for it because it never really got addressed. He holds that grudge. Then he goes and he meets another girl. This is where the other girl comes in. And he says, okay, perfect. Now, the grudge that I'm holding against you, right? This is you here. The grudge that I'm holding against you, because you flirted with that one guy, I'm going to take it out on you by not only flirting with this girl, but who knows, I'll get her number too. And maybe, I'll kiss her innocently. And maybe, I'll go over to her place and I'll sleep with her, knowing that you don't know any of this is going on. But it'll help me feel better about the fact that I've been hurt by you and I'm holding this grudge against you. Okay? Some of you might be thinking, wow, does that really happen? That's so crazy. It does. Because when guys are hurt or they feel betrayed by you and they don't get to feel resolved by it, a lot of times they just hold that, right? And for men, it becomes uberly dangerous, because when they hold that, all of that resentment just hardens into stone. And then they stack it on top of each other. And then one day you just, turn around and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I hate you for what you did back in 2004. And I hate when you said this back in 2002. And all of this stuff comes out of nowhere, right? So this is why it's so important. Never make the mistake of thinking just because your man is making it harder to address the situation where you know that his feelings have been hurt. Don't make the mistake of not actually addressing it. You always address it. I don't care if you have to come back the next day. I don't care if you have to come back in 2 days. I don't care if you have to keep bringing it up over and over again until he finally admits to you something is wrong. If that's your man or the guy you're taking seriously, always make sure he gets off his chest, honestly, the hurt that you might have made him feel, whether it was intentional for you or unintentional for you. Because for point number 3, we're going to discuss therapy talk. This is actually a really interesting one. And we've seen it actually of recently with some of the events of some of, your favorite content creators and their messy breakups, okay? Therapy talk is essentially when a man uses the fact that he understands the language of someone who seems to be emotionally intelligent and talks kind of like a therapist in a way where it's like, okay, those are words that a therapist would say. So yeah, it kind of would make sense that you're emotionally intelligent if you can repeat the words that a therapist would say. But the reason I call it like a mature cloak is because in the process of him using therapy talk, then you start to feel like, okay, well, maybe this guy actually is emotionally intelligent for me, enough for me, and this is the guy I should be choosing and looking for. But the reason it becomes a cloak is because when it comes to actually acting on these things, when it comes to actually making changes and making adjustments, when it comes to actually not making these mistakes even in the first place, or doing something so dumb and inappropriate in the first place, he's not able to be that emotionally mature, right? This is why it becomes a cloak or a disguise, so to speak, because the therapy talk and the verbiage is meant to trick you into thinking that person actually is all there, is actually very mature, is actually very emotionally mature. But in their actions, they don't act that same way. So I want you to be on the lookout for guys who, because this is kind of the new age and era of things. Guys can hear how people are talking nowadays when they want to sound mature, when they want to sound like they know what they're talking about. So sometimes guys will come on their dates and they'll be able to parrot back to you a lot of this verbiage that'll make you think, oh my God, this guy's so evolved. He knows what he's talking about. He's got direction. He knows how to solve problems. He's emotionally mature. And then when it comes down to actually being in a relationship with him, it doesn't work out that same way. And he's making mistakes that are even worse than the average guy, or even more dumb, or even more emotionally immature than the average guy. For point number 4, we're going to discuss guilt. Guilt is very interesting and a truth that you must learn about men. See, the old way of tricking women, right, is by being a player, right? Lying to them, trying to be smooth with it, making them think they're the only girl and you have multiple girls. Yeah. See, that doesn't work as well today because women are a little bit more well-versed in the ways of players. Now, one of the ones that does work is going in the other extreme for the new age of players, right? When I say going in the other extreme, not presenting yourself as someone who's trying to get over on you, or outwardly manipulate you or trying to be a player, but using the tactic of making himself look as if he is so vulnerable, so easy to hurt, so easily, stepped on as a man, that instead of you having to worry about being played by him, right? He tells you, in fact, I get played by everyone else. This is where the trick of guilt comes in. Some guys that you meet, they will begin presenting to you a narrative. Narratives are really important, okay? Narratives are so important in relationships. They will present to you a narrative. I have nobody, okay? I am lonely. I have no friends. I have no one to turn to. My family has disowned me. I can't talk to a single person. Everyone hates me. My coworkers don't love me. Everyone uses me and abuses me, okay? When they do that though, your walls come down. This is why I'm putting this kind of like equation here, right? He is really sad and upset because he has nobody. So you in turn feel really sad and upset for him because he has nobody. Then, because of your sad and upsetness, oh my God, he's so vulnerable, it's such a small little mouse, everyone steps on him. You then take actions to try and get him to be happy, feel good about himself, feel like the man, be able to feel like he does have someone in his life, someone that loves him, someone that will take care of him, right? Contrary to all the things he's been experiencing. Let me tell you why this ends up being a mistake. Because a lot of times men will use the fact that if they present themselves as super vulnerable, oh my God, I have no one, and then you feel sorry for them, right? You'll end up doing things and acting in ways that you wouldn't regularly act, and enduring things with him that you wouldn't regularly endure, simply because you feel sorry for him. And this is the weirdest part about that. And it's crazy because the women that have been through it know exactly the feeling I'm talking about. You're in the relationship, but your reason for being in the relationship isn't because I want the guy. Your reason for being in the relationship ends up being, I want to prove to the guy that he can be loved by someone. I want to prove to that guy that he's capable of being loved. I want to show him what love is like. Why? Because I feel sorry for the fact that he has no one. You want to know why that's wrong? Because you're not with that person because you even want to be with that person. You're with that person because you're trying to prove to them an arbitrary point about their own life because of how you feel bad for them. This is why I'm calling this point guilt. Because guilt is really being used to manipulate you into doing things that you wouldn't regularly do. And slowly but surely, you start giving things that you wouldn't regularly give. You start doing things for him that you wouldn't regularly do for a man, right? And you find yourself in a place down the line where this guy ends up treating you like trash, ends up not doing anything that he's supposed to do or holding his weight in the relationship as a man. And even though he's not holding his weight in the relationship as a man in any capacity, emotionally, financially, physically, whatever the case may be, you would regularly break up with a guy like that. But because you feel so bad about the situation and you feel so bad for him, you don't end up breaking up with him. So you stay in a state where you're miserable, hoping that you're going to eventually just show him how things are different for you and you're not like those other people. But you end up suffering trying to show him you're not like those other people because you're the one that ends up being miserable in the relationship, while he gets all the action that you take trying to prove to him these things, and he sucks you of your energy, sucks you dry, okay, not in a good way. So for point number 5, we're going to discuss consistency. Now, I'm not talking about the good kind of consistency, the consistency that we talk about on the show. I'm talking about this type of consistency that you might not be paying attention to when you're dealing with a guy. See, I said before, there is a difference between low quality and high quality attention, right? Some guys will give you lustful attention, which we can consider low quality, and some guys will give you I want to build with you attention, which is high quality attention, okay? Now, let's kind of discuss this idea of low quality and high quality consistency. Because what can happen to you when you're dealing with a man is sometimes his consistency, even in a low quality form, can begin to break you down. And you end up giving a chance to a guy who is just low quality consistent with you because in your mind, you're thinking, okay, well, I don't know the difference between low quality consistency and high quality consistency. Let me give you an example of that. An example of low quality consistency would be saying to yourself, okay, there's a guy that really doesn't have the character traits that I want in a guy. There's a guy that really doesn't show me any of the things that I would want to be in a relationship with. He's not manly enough for me. He's not masculine enough for me. He's not really attractive to me, but he does send me a good morning and a good night message day after day after day after day after day. Okay. So why is this important? You might not realize it because it's subconscious to you, but sometimes men can break you down with low quality consistency into making you feel like, okay, I should give that guy a chance, or maybe I should be with that guy simply because he's always trying to be consistent. Now, I do want you to give guys a chance who are consistent, but I want it to be the right type of consistency, okay? I don't want you to make the mistake of trying to give a chance to a guy simply because he's capable of messaging you good morning and good night every day, okay? Or he hits you up consistently and replies to your stories all the time, right? That's not a way to give a guy a reward for his consistency. The type of consistency I want you to be paying attention to is guys who would do things like ask you out on dates, okay? Right? And be like, let's go out, let's do something, right? Or I want to see you, or I want to like plan or schedule a time to actually go out with you, or maybe even let's talk on the phone. Can we organize a time for us to like have a proper conversation, right? These are the type of things that if a guy's consistent on, that I want you to think about, and I want you to consider, and I want you to be paying attention to, not the low quality versions of consistency like text messages, okay? Because I know that in your soul, sometimes the text messages, they can, I don't want to say beat you down, but they can start to like soften you up, okay? Soften you up into feeling like, you know what, maybe this guy isn't so bad. Despite the fact he doesn't have any of the qualities that I want, despite the fact he's not really the type of man that I want, despite the fact I don't even know if we're aligned or any of those other things or where they're supposed to be, he does message me every day. So maybe I'll give this guy a chance. Maybe I'll go on a date with this guy, right? Like that type of consistency in a low effort way isn't a reason to give a guy a chance if you don't feel like the other portions of you and this guy are in alignment, or he's not the type of guy that you're looking for, right? I don't want you to fall victim to that, because some men do know how that can play a role on your psyche and play a role on your mind, and how that can kind of soften you up over the course of time. Serial swipers. For point number 6, this is something that is a virus, okay? And I want you to see from a man's perspective so you can understand what is going on here. There are 2 types of men on dating apps. One type is a lot more often that you'll see it than the other, okay? There's the type of man who's on a dating app and he's looking for a woman who is the right type of woman, a quality woman. He's on the dating app for the purpose of finding the best possible partner, right? Someone that he's compatible with, someone that he can work with, someone that shares the same intentions as him and is in alignment with him. That one, unfortunately, is the one that you'll see a lot less often, not even just on dating apps, but in life in general, okay? Then there's another type of man. This type of man I call a serial swiper. You've heard about dopamine addiction before. I'm sure most of you had, when we talk about today's day and age, being addicted to social media, right? And getting that feeling of dopamine, that hit of euphoria, that good feeling from being able to swipe constantly in a state where you're just kind of like a zombie. A lot of us think that dopamine addiction, or that type of addiction to the hit of just swiping all the time, is only on social media from the standpoint of Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Reels, and things like that. It's not. What also happens in our day and age, some men are addicted to the act of swiping. When I say addicted to the act of swiping, these men, which are more common to be honest with you, are not looking for a good quality partner. That's not what they're getting dopamine from, because this is long-term, okay? Let me even put this in parentheses here, right? This is very long-term. You're gonna have to go through many, many months and even years to eventually come to the dopamine hit you'll receive from finding the right woman. That's very long-term. This, short-term, this dopamine hit, you can get every week, if not every day. Why? Because these men are addicted to being able to find a new shiny woman literally every day. And this is the crazy part. They will even go on dates with these new shiny women because they want to go on dates with these new shiny women. Now, they also want to smash on these dates with these new shiny women, or they want to smash very quickly and efficiently, right? But the whole idea is I want a new woman all the time, right? And never before has it been really possible for a guy to experience a new woman damn near every week, if not every couple of days, more than now that we have dating apps. Because it makes it so easy to access all types of women without having to go out every night to the bar or to the club or to be on the strip, right? Looking for girls, right? When you can just swipe on them, you can chat with them for a little bit and date them. Now, am I saying dating apps in themselves are evil? No, but I do want you to understand the type of men you're gonna likely encounter on dating apps, which is why they're kind of essentially ineffective. A lot of guys that you're gonna meet, especially the ones on dating apps, are really serial swipers. And they're addicted to being able to get a new shiny woman all the time. So for point number 7, we're gonna discuss the silent man. Very dangerous, the silent man. Here's why the silent man can become so dangerous to you. Because when you're dealing with men who will not be open and honest and talk about what's important to them, their perspective, their values, their morals, you won't learn the most important things to learn about a guy, right? And I included a few of them, but there's a lot more, right? His desires, true desires, his intention with you, with his own life, with what he wants for the future, the fact of whether or not he thinks marriage is valuable, whether he thinks having a wife is valuable, because I know it sucks, but you might realize it when you have a conversation with the guy for long enough, he doesn't even see marriage as being valuable. He doesn't even see having a wife as being valuable. He might have an outlook on life that, hey, by the way, you know, in this day and age, getting married is just a waste of time, waste of money. You know, you're better off just, you know, living your life with the person. And if you break up, you break up. That could be his outlook, right? Understanding his life outlook, understanding his definition of love, understanding his definition of cheating. Like I said, I didn't put them all here. But these are the types of things, just a few examples of the things you miss out on with the silent man. Why am I bringing this up? Because I know sometimes you all can get obsessed with being with the shy boy, because shy boys are innocent. They're a lot less intimidating. And here's the other subconscious thing you might be thinking. If he's shy, he probably has a lot less girls, right? He probably has a lot less access to girls. He probably gets a lot less girls. So I wouldn't have to worry about him cheating as much if he's a shy boy than I would if he was outgoing, had a lot of friends, really attractive, and then all the girls were flocking to him, right? That's kind of the thought process on a subconscious level. But the problem with the silent man is it's so hard to learn anything about him. The horror story of being with the silent man is that you end up in a situation where you think he wants the same thing as you. You think you guys are on the same page until one day, and sometimes it's months, and sometimes it's years, sometimes it's decades. You all of a sudden, randomly, one day, wake up, and the guy who you thought this entire time was on the exact same page as you, agreeing with everything you said, everything you guys talked about, everything you guys said you wanted for your future. And he just woke up one day and said, yeah, by the way, it's not working out for me and we got to break up and I'm gone. You think that sounds like it's impossible? I promise you, we can go on TikTok right now and I can show you a bunch of stories where women have literally been blindsided by men who they were in relationships with for years sometimes. And they might go on a trip, they might go somewhere random, they might like just something, anything. And then they just receive like a note, just like a note from the guy saying, yeah, by the way, I want to break up. It's not working out for me. And they're like, what? And this is part of the reason that this happens. When you're with the silent man, it's a lot easier to impress upon that silent man your own opinions, your own perspective, your own values, your own desires, right? And when they're silent but agreeable, it makes you feel like, oh yeah, me and him, we're on the same page about everything. Yeah, me and him, we know exactly what we want. When in reality, it's what you want. It's what your desires are. It's what your intention is, right? That's why I always say, come on that date with your questions, okay? Not coming on that date ready to yap. Come on that date ready to get him to yap. All right. And if you notice you're with a man who's a silent man, extra silent, just looking to agree with anything you're saying, stay far away from him. Not being ready. This is a harsh truth about men that you need to learn because it actually kind of has to do with you, but also the way men interact with you. Let me explain. So when you're in a place mentally, let's say you just finished up a relationship, okay? And you've just got out of this 2-year relationship that was really toxic. You went through a lot. There was a lot of back and forth. And finally, you're out of it for good. Like you're actually not going back to that guy. Now, in the process of you finally stepping out of this relationship and into the single world, you know mentally, you're not actually ready to be in a new relationship because of all the trauma you've experienced in the last one, all the thoughts and, things that you went through. You're not mentally there. You have to really heal first, right? Like the kids say, you got to heal. Now, in the process of you healing, right? And you recognizing that you're really not ready for a new relationship, you're kind of directionless, not in a bad way, but in a human way. Directionless in the sense that like, you don't yet have your feelings organized yet. You're still kind of in love with your ex, and there's still a lot of just situations that you've been through that remind you of him. You don't even have everything of his cleared out of your house. You're just like, you're not fully there mentally to be able to move forward in a new relationship. That's not a crime, okay? You're a human being. This is where it becomes dangerous, okay? You're not sure about moving forward, but you're hot. You're sexy. You're so attractive. When you walk by in your tightest pair of jeans, the guys love you. When you walk by in that beautiful tight dress, the guys, they're obsessed with you. So they're always approaching you 24 hours a day. You can't leave your house and a guy doesn't approach you, okay? Here's the problem though. You're not ready for a new relationship. You don't really have direction of what you want, what you need, what's important to you. Your mind is still fuzzled from the last one. The guys are attracted to you though. As they're attracted to you and they approach you, they're like, hey ma, what's up with you? I want to get to know you. I want to take you out. Some guys might actually even mean like, I want to wife you, like I want to be with you. Here's where the problem starts. And this is where the tragedy begins. You're not ready for a relationship, but there's a guy that you kind of vibe with. You then end up allowing things to happen in a capacity that you would never allow them to happen if you were saying, I'm going into the dating market prepared to find my husband and date with intention. Why do you allow things to slide? Because you don't really have an intention yet. You don't really have a direction yet because you're still hung up on your last relationship and everything that transpired there. The problem is you still went ahead and allowed yourself to explore a new relationship without properly being ready for an old one. And not being able to set the boundary of saying, I'm just not going to talk to any new men is such a mistake because here's what will happen. And I've seen it happen. You sleep with him, you chit chat with him, yeah, hang out. We don't have to go on expensive dates. Yeah, we could just hang out in the house. Yeah, just a good little vibe, just watch Netflix. I'm just kind of chilling. I want to get over my ex, like vibe, under the blankets. Yo, let's cuddle. Like, it's not too serious. Don't be too serious. Let's go out to the club together. Let's kiss a little bit. Let's get drunk together. Let's smoke a little bit. Let's vibe together. Yo, you penetrate me. Yo, I'm on top of you. Yo, we living a good life, right? Then you get to a point where you say, okay, this has been going on for like 6 months and I'm kind of like over my ex. I'm kind of actually over my ex and I'm kind of actually focused on you now. And I feel like me and you, our vibe has been vibing so well. I kind of want this to be more than just a vibe. I kind of want us to be in an actual serious relationship. But here's the problem. You've spent so much time without direction and allowing him to interact with you and vibe with you without you having any actual direction of where you want to go in the relationship. He's actually now, in the time you guys have spent together, become accustomed to that. So now the things that you want from him are different. Now, going to his house and you Ubering to his house and Ubering back and forth or driving yourself and doing all this work for him and you just for you guys to be together. Now you want dates. Now you want to be taken out. Now you want to be treated well. Now you want him to, be more intentional. Now you want him to call you more instead of just texting you casually when he has time. Now you don't want him to just pull up at 2 or 3 a.m. after he finishes at the club. Now you want him to talk to you more during the day. Now you want him to have a desire to be around you and your friends and to meet his friends and all this other stuff. But this is the major problem and the harsh truth you will learn eventually about men, right? It is very, very difficult, to basically impossible, to take yourself from allowing yourself to deal with men without having a direction of where you want to be, to then trying to figure out the direction as you're with him, and then as you discover that, trying to course correct afterwards. So many women make the mistake of trying to go backwards and course correct by saying, yeah, All the things I was allowing before, I don't want to allow anymore. And so now that I'm feeling like I want this to be taken seriously, I need you to change your entire approach to this relationship. In fact, the entire dynamic of our relationship needs to take a 180 degree turn, okay? That is not how this works. In Viewpoint, for point number 9, you have to be aware of a man's belief system. So many women make this mistake of going on your date with your guy, and you say, okay, here, tell me, what do you want for marriage? Tell me how you expect to be married. And he says, marriage is not really something that's super important. And then you say, no, you're not supposed to think that. You're not supposed to think that marriage is not important. You're supposed to think marriage is very important. You're supposed to think that you want to have a wife and kids. You're supposed to think that you want to be a provider man. Because I want a provider man. I want a man who wants to get married. I want a man who wants to live in, Phoenix, Arizona. I want a man who wants to make 6 figures. And so you end up, right, coming on your date. And even in the process of getting to know a man, right, you don't even care what he actually thinks. You don't care about his perspective. You don't care about his viewpoint. You don't care about his, opinions, morals, or values. You care about yours. And then you go on the date trying to impress your opinions on the guy. This is a mistake. You're never going to convince a guy to live his life a different way. You're also not going to meet someone and then change their morals or values. You need to go on your dates, have your own perspective, your viewpoints, your own belief system. Good. Go on your dates, ask the guy, and observe of the guy, what is your belief system? Here's where a lot of people go wrong. In the process of asking them what their belief system is, don't make it seem as if, okay, I disagree with you, which means you're a bad person, or I believe differently, so you're wrong. You have to make someone feel like, no, I just want to know and understand your belief system. There is no right or wrong answer. And you actually have to be non-judgmental while that person is answering. That's the hardest part. You can't be making faces. You can't look or sound disgusted. You can't, in the way that you respond, make him feel like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, so you're wrong, which means you can't say that, which means that's not right. As weird as it sounds, I want you to encourage men, even when they say things that you're like, whoa, you think that about that? I want you to encourage them to continue telling you their perspective and their viewpoint, because you cannot build a successful relationship with someone who you are misaligned with. So many women find themselves in relationships with men who fundamentally disagree about the way to go about a particular situation because they have a fundamental difference in their ideologies. You're better off, if you want to spend as little time and energy wasted, knowing what you want and what's important to you and what your values are, and then simply only spending your time and energy with guys who are aligned with you in those really important parts. Let's talk about number 10, a hater man. Whenever he sees a successful guy on TV, on the internet, when you guys are watching, TV together on Netflix, whatever the case may be, he's always hating on other men. Okay? Always hating, finding some reason to hate. Whether it's an attractive guy, he don't really have much going on. He's not really that good looking. I don't even know why the girls want him. He's ugly anyways. A guy with money, he's a scammer, whatever. He don't really earn his money. It was just given to him. Oh, he's a trust fund baby. Oh, anyone could do that, right? A successful man, he is a hand down. He didn't really work hard for that. Anyone can do that. I just don't feel like doing that. If I wanted to do that, I could do that in a second, right? So why are hater men very dangerous for you? See, being a hater is a state of being, okay? It's an energy. It's a frequency, okay? The reason I drew this like this is because that hater energy is like, going out of you and just spreading everywhere, right? It's all around you. It's surrounding you because you're always outputting hater energy, not just towards men, but towards everything. And one of the reasons I say a hater man is because one of the easiest ways to spot a hater man is he's always hating on other men, okay? Right? Sometimes they'll hate on women like Lotus Flower says, but more often they feel more comfortable hating on other men because hating on men seems less harmful than, or it seems more harmless, I should say, than, hating on women, right? So they'll hate on other men when they're insecure about themselves or where they are, that they always feel the need to pick at what someone else is doing with their life and say, oh, well, they're doing the wrong thing. They don't know what they're doing, right? For example, right? this could be something that you notice if you're dating a musician, right? Let's say you're dating someone who wants to be a successful musician. He might see other musicians and be like, oh yeah, that guy's songs, his songs are trash. Oh yeah, I don't know why he gets millions of views. His stuff is low quality. He doesn't sing good. He doesn't rap good. His beats are trash. Oh, you know, he's getting carried by, you know, just because his marketing and just because he's got millions of dollars behind him. His stuff's trash though. You know, real music's what survives. I make real music. That's that fake stuff, that commercial stuff. So these are the type of things that a hater man will say when he feels insecure about his position in his own life, when he feels insecure about what people might think of him, that he feels the need to preface everything by saying, that person isn't actually better than me. That person isn't actually more talented than me. That person hasn't worked harder than me. I'm actually better than them. You just don't realize it. And let me point out to you why I'm actually better than them and you just don't realize it. The reason that's so dangerous for you in dealing with a man who's of that hater energy, that hater mind state, is if he has insecurity in where he's at and he doesn't feel good about himself, that insecurity will also eventually be taken out on you, because if he doesn't feel like a man or man enough, he will also be insecure if he feels like, it's going to sound weird, you're showing other guys attention, because he's going to start to think, oh, well, is she showing that guy attention because he's got more money than me? Is she showing that guy attention because he's more attractive than me? I'm hating, right? Is she showing that guy attention because he's more of a successful man than I am? Right? And that insecurity and that hater energy will just spill out of him in everything. He'll start to become overly controlling. He'll start to become extremely insecure about everything you're doing, everywhere you're going, right? And just in everything, he will start, even sometimes he'll start to hate on you. He'll start to try to compete with you. He'll start to, try and one-up you. Think about it. You're sleeping with a guy and you're in the bed and he's literally your biggest hater, right? And sometimes that happens when a man is deeply insecure about himself. And how do you spot that? You spot those hater men. Those hater men are always trying to put down other people to make themselves feel better about the position that they're in.